doing? Hope you're having a damn great day. Welcome back to the channel, and we will be breaking down Roberto Martinez's 4-4-1-1 Portuguese tactics, his formation going forward. Now, of course, he has played a back 5 system, he's played a 4-3-3 system, but we will get to those in a future date, future timeline. We will get there, don't you worry. But right now, the 4-4-1-1 formation, that's what we'll be trying to look to replicate and recreate in the game FC24. So, starting off with the team going forward, we've got the big man Ronaldo leading the front line, leading the attack. We've got Joao Felix just in behind him, Rafael as well as Bernardo Silva as the wingers. Then we've got Bruno Fernandes and Pereira as the double pivot, you could say. We've got Ignacio and Diaz as the two centre-backs, as well as Dallo and Cancelo as the full-backs. And then between the sticks, we've got Diogo Costa, a fantastic young goalkeeper, only 24 years of age, by the way. Where will he go? I don't know. I mean, I think he's kind of outgrown Porto in a little, you know, there is a big club calling him, but we just don't know where just yet. Anyway, we've got Ramos, Jota, Otavio, Neves, Patricio, Pepe, and Mendes on the bench. And then in the reserves, we've got Guerrero, Horta, Vitina, Polina, Sarr, Sanchez, Silva, as well as Semedo. Now, with the formation going forward, it's just a 4-4-1-1 attack. No real changes. I haven't really done anything. It's one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two central midfielders, one centre-forward, two wide midfielders, and then one striker. Now, with this set of tactics, Portugal, they do look to keep core values throughout their formation changes or their tactical tweaks. They will always look to be structurally sound, very compact at the back. So, for their defensive style, I've gone with a pressure on heavy touch, waiting for the opposition to make a mistake, then pouncing on that and looking to transition in attack, trying to supply Ronaldo with a early through ball, trying to have him one-on-one with the goalkeeper. They're always looking to try and, make sure that it's very hard for the opposition to play through the lines, generate space for any of their attacking outlets, and make sure that they can win the ball back nice and high up the field, potentially with a press. So you can also look to implement a team press with the D-pad. It's down and left. You will try and press the backline or potentially the goalkeeper. And obviously when the ball is in the backline or with the goalkeeper, that's when you should try and trigger that. So otherwise, they're going to try and keep their structure, their formation, not try and, press too aggressively out of possession. So that's why I've gone with that. The team width, like I said, very compact, nice 30 team width. It helps, it creates a very compact structure, making it, like I said earlier, hard for the opposition to try and squeeze through balls, try and supply forwards, and have those forwards very uncomfortable and almost isolate them in certain areas. Now, as for the team depth, it's a mid-block, you could say 65 depth. It helps with the slow pace of Ruben Diaz. It also helps with the ability to not have your goalkeeper running off of his line, being in no man's land, and potentially being exposed. So it does protect the back line, a very structurally defensive sound approach that Martinez does look to implement. Now, as for the offensive outlet, the build-up play is set to fast-paced build-up. I did see in last night's game, in the Luxembourg game, they do look to try and control the game, yes, but when things are ticking over, they try and do it very quickly, trying to almost catch the opposition out with their fast-paced build-up. So whether the fullbacks are bombing on forward and you have consistent fluidity and movement up front, they do it very quickly, and that's more or less why they've been able to score so many goals over these last few games. Now, as for the chance creation, it's direct passing. Now, with certain player instructions, they will be making those runs in behind, yes, and you do want that. You want a bit more fluidity up front. But the direct passing, balls into Ronaldo, having him involved in the play, balls into the likes of Joao Felix, having the ability to spray the ball out wide directly into the line of a Rafael, having him try and go at his man. You want to be very direct with your passing in the final third. In the build-up play, you want to be able to nail those passes perfectly. As for the width, it's a very compact structure going forward. Now, obviously, you will have a bit of width in your team with either your fullbacks or your wingers, depending on their instructions, and we will get to those very, very shortly. But the centre of the park is very compact, very structurally sound, in and out of possession of the ball. So you want to be able to spray those little passes, those 5-yard passes, get passing movements going, and I think that's what best represents and reflects in the game, of course, what Portugal do on the field in real life. Now, as for players in the box, you want to try and generate as much movement in and around the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo to not have too many players just play more towards him and therefore making him ineffective in certain moments. Now, we did see in last night's game especially, with so many players making those runs into the box or potentially making those runs in and around the box, if there is a ricochet or the ball falls just in and around that attacking third, there is a player that can potentially pick it up and take a shot. And we saw that with Cancelo's goal, where I think a cross was fired in, it moved around the box, they tried to clear it, fell to Cancelo on his right foot, pinged it topwards, and that's what Martinez is looking to try and implement here. There's always second, third, fourth opportunities for other players. Now, as for corners and free kicks, as per always, it is set to 4. So with the instructions going forward, we'll start off with the goalkeeper. As per always, Diogo Costa set to come for crosses, very good at claiming those aerial balls, like most modern goalkeepers. But the difference is, because you aren't playing the highest of lines, you don't need it making those advanced runs into no man's land in certain moments, winning the ball back. You do have a mid-block set in place. So your defense, your fullbacks, everything like that, they should be able to track the opposition in time to not expose your goalkeeper. So for the saving outside of the box, I've gone with a balanced approach. Sometimes, yes, you can do that, but more times than not, hold your line and make the save. Anyway, moving on to Ignacio and Diaz. They are set to their base set of instructions. You don't really want them doing too much there. But now, for our fullbacks, slight variations, but the same outcome. That's what you're trying to generate here. And we will go over the rotations if the likes of Cancelo is not playing as a fullback and the likes of Gonçalo Ramos does come in for Ronaldo. So stay tuned for that if you would like. Now, Dalot. He's here to join the attack as well as overlap. You want him creating the width down the right-hand side, bombing on, supplying, the ability for Silva to have a bit more space. And then as for his defensive position, you want him to stick to that position. You don't want him being too aggressive, stepping too far, hide the field, being exposed with the ball in behind. You want him just to make sure he's being defensively, structurally sound with his attacking outlet as well as his defensive presence. Now, moving on to the left back, we've got Cancelo, obviously a right-footed player. So he's going to join the attack, yes, but this time invert. You want him inverting, developing into the midfield, linking up play very well with it, supplying the left winger with underlapping runs, potentially pulling out certain players. Maybe the fullback will tend to go with the underlapping fullback, creating more space for your winger. Now, in terms of his defensive position, very much the same as Dalot. He is set to stick to position. Moving on into our midfield, Pereira, he's set to stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box for crosses, not looking to advance too deep into it. The only time he'll really be in the box is for corners and free kicks. Very good in the air, might I say, but otherwise, he's going to look to try and facilitate on the edge of the box. Try and be the linchpin in the attacking outlets. Now, for his interceptions, I've set it to normal, as well as cover the centre and then stick to position for his positioning freedom. Now, I did try and get him to drop deep, drop into the back line at times, but I don't know what EA have done, but they've done away with that option. So in last night's game, he was definitely in the back line at times, linking up plays, slotting in, creating a back five in certain moments, but it's very hard to try and replicate that in the game because EA have done away with it. So this best replicates what that role can potentially be. Of course, he won't necessarily be deep in the back line or link up play with the forming a back three at times, but it will get him very close to your centre backs, almost recreating a back three approach. Now, we'll move on to his midfield counterpart, Bruno Fernandes, playing the box-to-box role. He does get forward very well, and that's why we have set him to get forward. You do want him making those deeper runs into the attacking third, supplying either cutbacks or crosses, or potentially taking shots on for himself, making those advanced runs in behind, pulling players out of position. Very much what the rest of the team does look to try and do. His interceptions, I've set to normal. You can set it to aggressive if you are looking to try and be, or you might be chasing a game. You want him to try and win that ball back nice and quickly, nice and high up the field potentially. But for now, I've gone with a normal approach. He does drain stamina quite quickly with this role because he is consistently making those advancing runs forward. As for his defensive position, I've set to cover the wing, sometimes slotting in for Dalot, other times looking to try and take up a wider position, interchanging positions with the likes of Bernardo Silva in certain moments. And then as for his positioning freedom, I've gone with a free roll approach. You do want him popping up in the little half spaces, the pockets of space that are generated in and around him, with the sheer fluidity of this team going forward. And speaking of going forward into the front line, our centre forward role, Joao Felix, set to drift wide, yes of course, making sure that he can drift into the left-hand channel or potentially the right-hand channel. And that's the best thing about this role right here. We don't know the exact position that Joao Felix has. We don't know if he's a left wing, a right wing, a centre forward, a striker, an attacking midfielder, a midfielder. And I think this role does get the best out of him going forward. So, drift wide, yes, you want him in those channels, linking a play with a Leao or a potential Bruno Fernandes, or maybe even a Bernardo Silva in certain moments. But most importantly, for his attacking runs, you want him dropping off, collecting the ball, and then making interchanging passes in and around the attacking third. Aggressive interceptions though are set to go. He's going to work very hard off the ball to try and make sure that Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, has an easier time when Portugal are out of possession. And that's something that I appreciate with Martinez. He's realised Ronaldo's 38 years old. He can't do this pressing game. Save him for the attacking outlets. And we've seen a much improved version of the attacking Ronaldo. But anyway, we'll get to Ronaldo soon enough. And in terms of his defensive support, of course, for Joao Felix, he's set to come back on defense, also creating that deeper role that he does look to take up in certain moments, linking up play very nicely with the Bruno, with the Pereira, maybe even a Neves or Palhinha. He does drop off quite well. Now, moving out wide to the left-hand side, Rafael Leao looking to consistently help out his fullback at times with the ability to come back on defense. Staying wide, though, is essential, especially if you are playing Cancelo. Of course, Cancelo is making that underlapping run, the inverted play, whereas you want your winger in this situation to hold the width of the field, making sure that he is creating 1v1 situations with the opposition player. Maybe that might be a fullback, or it might be a midfielder looking to take up a wider approach, but he will have that 1v1 situation, and he's very good in those situations, might I say. Getting him behind, though, this is where the direct passing and getting him behind is essential. Of course, you will be playing those direct balls into your forward line and so on, but you also want your forward line to try and stretch the opposition on a vertical scale. And that's what Rafael Leao, as well as Cristiano Ronaldo, will look to do on a consistent basis whilst on the field. Making sure that they are playing on the back line, or on the edge of the back line of the opposition, making sure that they are trying to exploit them with those runs in behind. And then as for his interceptions, working very hard out of possession, set to aggressive, making sure that he's almost making up for the lack of the Ronaldo press. And then in terms of his support on crosses, I've set it to balanced, as he can look to facilitate on the edge of the area or potentially make those arcing runs and attack the ball in the final third. For the likes of Bernardo Silva, he does have a slightly different role to your left wing. So for Bernardo Silva, he's set to come back on defense, very similar. But this time, his chance creation is set to having a balance with sometimes looking to get him behind, other times looking to come a bit more short, cut inside, create opportunities for his teammates or potentially for himself. But this is where things get very, very interesting. I've been, playing with this, tactic, but setting Bernardo Silva to a target man, having the ball knocked into him, and then having him express himself with the ball at his feet, I think that gets the best out of him. And I think going forward, this will probably be the best tactic to get the best out of Bernardo Silva in the game FC24. So yes, have the ball knocked into him, have him express himself, have him create space for your overlapping fullback, and draw players out of position. And then aggressive interceptions are set to be on for him, as well as very similar to your left wing, being able to facilitate on the edge of the area or potentially making those advancing runs into the final third. And finally, we have got Cristiano Ronaldo. His set of instructions and tactics going forward is set to drift wide. Now, you do want him to be able to pick up those central areas, yes, but he does look to, vacate that area, pull players out of position, pull the centre-backs out of position more times than not, and make sure that he's doing a good enough job with that, making those advancing runs in behind, which is why we have set him to get him behind. You want him to be able to play on the back line, trying to exploit them in certain moments. As for his interceptions, though, I've gone with a conservative approach, trying to save him for the offensive side of the ball instead. And then as for his defensive support, he will be your outlet ball, making those runs in behind, having the ball nailed into him from a potential counter-attacking corner, have him hold it up, and then link up play going forward. Now, if you do rotate the team with Mendes and Ramos coming in, there are some slight tweaks and variations to it. So we'll start off with the left back. Mendes, of course, naturally left-footed, so you want him to be on his natural foot when crossing the ball. So he will join the attack, of course, but this time making those overlapping runs, and that does affect Leao's instructions ever so slightly. So he will make those overlapping runs, creating the width down the left-hand side more times than not, as well as stick to position. Now, speaking of Leao, the only change that will be made is his chance creation will be set to balance. Sometimes looking to hug the touchline, other times looking to cut inside a bit more, link up play with the midfield. And then finally, we've got Gonçalo Ramos. His support runs are set to stay central, looking to attack the penalty spot, make sure that those crosses being nailed in to the attacking third are nailed into him, trying to latch onto those corners or free kicks or crosses in general with his head or potentially his boots. And then in terms of his attacking runs, I think it's a wide spread of attacking talent that this kid does have. You do want him to be a target man, of course, but it's got the pace and the presence to be able to make those runs in behind. He also has the ability to drop off the backline like Ronaldo, sucking players out of position, opening up space and little pockets of space for the other attacking players to try and develop into. And that's why I think what best suits him going forward is an all-round dynamic approach set to mixed. And I think that does get the best out of him, as well as Portugal going forward and backwards. Anyway, as for the interceptions, I would say to aggressive. You want him to try and press the opposition's back and make sure that they're forced into making mistakes, and he does a very effective job off the ball. As well as his defensive support, like Ronaldo, he will be the outlet ball going forward. Maybe does a slightly better job with his back to goal, linking up play quite effectively, but nonetheless, a good, sound player. So yes, people, that is my version of Roberto Martinez's 4-4-1-1 formation for Portugal, those set of tactics. Of course, we will get to the back five systems that he has played and the 4-2-3-1 formation and all that good stuff in the future. But for now, if you can do me the biggest honor, the biggest favor, smashing that thumbs up. That would be the most effective thing you could do to make my day. So, until the next time, my people, subscribe if you are new, and I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.